Welcome, Traveler. Today, we're going to talk about the best set in Where Winds Meet for DPS and defense, and what I am using to always top the damage leaderboards with almost double the damage of the others. If you open up a gearbox, it often shows you recommended. However, that recommended is not necessarily the best to use. Let's start with the Hawking set. 2 set pieces will give you affinity rate, and then 4 set pieces says, when any of your damage triggers affinity, gain Hawking. Increases physical damage by 2% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This does technically sound good. However, at the current point, level 51, we have an affinity rate of 10.6, sometimes 12-13%. Yeah, that doesn't sound like it's going to trigger a lot. Especially if you compare it to the Willow Set, which gives you precision rate with 2 set pieces, and with 4 pieces it says, after a light attack or a heavy attack, damage is increased by 12%, lasting 10 seconds. Now you simply have to start all your combos with one single slash. And then go for the whatever you're doing, 10 seconds long, right? Pump out your damage, and then one single slash again. That's it. 12% more damage. Now, which one of those two would you rather have? The Hawking or the Wail of the Willow? I am playing a bleed strategic sword build, and I'm not willing to use this because it's just not as good as simply getting straight up the 12% more damage. Bam, done. No questions asked. The Wail of the Willow set works really well for the strategic sword, for the damage umbrella, because you're pretty much shooting out your light attack all the time. Also, the dual blades do very good with it. To be fair, it works for every single martial art, because it's simply 12% for one single slice. What about the Jadeware set though? Max physical attack bonus, that's amazing, and then casting a martial art skill activates Jadeware's effect. Increase affinity damage by 10% and deals 20% more affinity damage to targets under control or have lower than 40% ki. This effect lasts 12 seconds and can only trigger every 30 seconds. What I heavily dislike about this is it can only trigger every 30 seconds. Sure, you will get more damage from the Jadeware set, right? More affinity damage, congratulations. But it would last for 12 seconds, and then it would be 18 seconds gone. Whereas, again, if we compare this now to the Wail of the Willow set, or even the Hawking set, both would always be active at any given point, right? 12% more damage, always. Yeah, where this, like, it's 18 seconds long, not active. That's not really good. Next up, we get the Rainwhisper Set, which gives you max HP, that's cool, and then increase all critical damage and healing by 10%, and further increase them by 15 when you have an HP shield. That's a potential of 25% bonus damage on your crits. And critical strike is actually something we can get meaningful up. My precision rate is currently 85%, I could probably with gear push it to 90, and my crit rate is actually almost at 30% already. So if I hit a precision hit, I can then crit, and that crit will get a huge bonus damage from the set. I do believe the Rainwhisper set will turn out very well down the line as we have legendary equipment with more stats rightly tuned up. Again though, right now, while we're getting to that point to actually get the good equipment, for me personally, the Wail of the Willow still prevails because it's the 12% permanently, right? Stonesplit though is something that looks really good if you can then get the HP shield, because a build that does not have HP shield does not profit from this. Which means playing it with a nameless sword could be nice. Technically, the Thundercry blade could profit from it with its Q skill. However, the nameless sword just really spams away and slices and dices away and does like massive damages, where the Thundercry blade will go for the rather slow attacks. You just can't spam it away. But you could get the key shield and then swap over to your other weapon for potential damage boost. Then we get the Swallowcall, and I thought it was good because we get min physical attack, and then it says light attacks deal 15% more damage to targets with ki below 40%. If you're playing this in single player, you very fast get enemies ki depleted, especially if you're playing strategic sword, no name, the spears, dual blades, that kind of stuff, right? You just bump their ki away. However, in the phase where they have above 40% ki, you're getting nothing, right? Even for me as someone who rocks the dual blades in Legend, I wouldn't take the Sen because it gives me like too much not damage for then some more damage, and that only would be for light attacks, right? Whereas again, if we're coming back to the Wail of the Willow set, it says 12% to everything, right? not just to light attacks, also to me shooting out my umbrella shot and whatsoever. Lastly, we got the Ivorybloom. Critical rate up, and then at max HP, there's a bonus 5% chance to deal critical healing and damage, and increase the effect of critical healing and damage by 15%. I do like that. If we already have 27% crit, and I get a bonus chance to deal critical healing or damage, and even more of this with a crit strike bonus on the set applied on the tippity top. From all the bonuses I've seen right now, next to the Whale of the Willow for that 12% permanent, I do actually like the Ivorybloom the most, because it will just allow me to, whatever I do, deal more damage. I don't actually need to have an HP shield for this, right? Even a build that does have HP shield might be better off going for the Ivorybloom set because of that bonus 5% chance to deal critical healing and damage. Because if you don't have an HP shield, you only get 10% more. Whereas we already get 15% more with the Ivorybloom. Ta-da. Which undoubtedly makes the Whale of the Willow set my number 1, and the Ivorybloom set the number 2. With the Rainwhisper set, the honorary number 3. Which kind of makes the whole recommended tag seem a little bit silly, since you can use every set for every build. I mean, this would be a Whale of the Willow dual blades, with quite some insane stats on it, apart from the defense. Strike that. And before you ask, yes, this is also the set I am using, sadly only with 2 pieces. I did do the 4 pieces, but it's only with a blue blade. And currently, I would actually lose damage doing this, because my purple blade is just so much better. Sure, I get 12% more damage, but if I'm losing quite some base damage because my purple blade is just superior in every single way, I cannot play the set bonus. Now for defensive sets, it's a bit more tricky because it really depends on your playstyle. However, there's one that reigns above them all, and that would be the Eaglerise Set. Eaglerise gives you physical defense, and with 4 sets it says, dealing damage over time or healing grants 1 stack of Eaglerise. Reduces damage taken by 1.2% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This is permanent up. You fight, you get 6% damage reduction. At max stacks, receive an Eagle Guard effect that reduces the next incoming damage within 10 seconds by 90%. Half when the damage comes from a boss. However, this can only happen every 30 seconds. So you pretty much have no control over when it comes. The second part is bad. The first part is just a flat 6% damage reduction. That's always active, unconditional. Compare this now to the Moonflare Set. More HP, and it says, when attacking while defending, there's a 30% chance to create a shield that absorbs up to 10% of max HP, lasting 20 seconds. Not terrible. If a shield already exists, restores 2% HP in addition, this effect can only trigger once every 60 seconds. Personally, not a fan of this, as it's like only every 60 seconds. It's pretty much once or twice during a boss fight as a please save me. However, it's bound to a chance, and that kind of makes it again awkward because you cannot rely on it, right? It might happen or it might not happen when you need it. Whereas you, for example, have the Calmwater Set that simply says, performing a perfect dodge has a 50% chance to restore 3% of your max HP and 10 endurance. Great. You can force perfect dodges. Then you flip a coin, either it's heal or no heal. That is something you can do, right? With this set, you get a hope that it triggers and saves you or not. With the Calmwaters, it will happen. If you then perfect dodge. Personally, with my strategic sword build, I do not perfect dodge. However, in legend difficulty, with my dual sword build, I do perfect dodge a lot to get the time slow and then slice and dice away at the enemy. Which means for my dual blade build, definitely a good one, even better than the Eaglerise, because I'm consistently on the offensive and I don't need the damage reduction. This brings us to playstyles, right? You get the actual Formbend Set. This has your shield duration is extended by 2 seconds. And if you have more than 85% key or a key damage immunity shield, reduce all HP damage taken by 20%. Now this is fire for anyone that actually does play any kind of shielding ability. If you play the Nameless Sword, perfect. Especially then if you pair it together with the damage set that would increase all critical damage if you then do have the shield up. However, we said it before that actually the Ivorybloom set might be better because of the bonus chance and the consistent being active. Still though, the Formbend Set has quite a merit to it. I like it, especially with the all HP damage taken if your key is up. Then we get beyond the shield that I'm currently wearing. That's terrible. Yeah, I just had it because it was recommended and it came together with the Wail of the Willow that I've been peddling, right? So I got this lot of Beyond of the Chill. However, after entering combat, if no damage is taken for 10 seconds, gain Beyond the Chill, reduce the next damage taken and all damage taken within 2 seconds afterward by 40%. Beyond the Chill is removed up and leaving combat. I mean, first and foremost, you have to enter combat, then you have to take no damage for 10 seconds, then you get Beyond the Chill. It all just is straight up worse than things that are permanent active, that you can force while dodging, and also like a save up shield, or even the one that could save you, right? Randomly. That's where Beyond the Chill just feels awkward beyond belief. Lastly, there would be the Whirlsnow. When you lose more than 40% of max HP in a single instance of damage, or when your HP falls below 20%, the next healing you receive within 5 seconds restores an additional 25% of your max HP. This effect triggers only once every 60 seconds. It is only every 60 seconds. However, it definitely saves you from one big hit, right? Or when you get hit below, then you get a buff that will, even with a normal potion sip, just heal you vastly more. Compare this now to the shielding that has a chance to trigger if you need it. Whereas the Whirlsnow will trigger. I get hit, I go down, I'm low, maybe 10% HP, sip my potion, bam, I'm back up. Doesn't happen for 60 seconds again, but then I just have to play good for 60 seconds. And worst case scenario, you still have your key defense that might also save you one single time. Which leads me to the conclusion that the best safe set is definitely Eaglerise, because it's just simply damage reduction. However, if you're actually very good at deflecting and dodging, it might be better to use the Calmwaters or actually the Whirlsnow Set, because this is a worst case scenario if shit hits the fan. If you can't block one of the red attacks or anything goes all red, you get hit by a yellow attack, and it simply helps you to come back from that moment. So I would go with Whirlsnow and Eaglerise, unless you're obviously playing something with shields and you would like to extend the duration, right? We got the number 1 and 2, or 2 and 1, or both 1, and then the third one here with the potential key shield up. Or you do it like me, because I didn't like any of the bonuses, which means I went for the max HP bonus from the Beyond the Chill set, and then I get myself bonus physical defense from the Eaglerise set. You're not forced to play all 4 if you don't like what you see there. The same actually goes for the damaging sets. I get precision rate up, and I could get with the Hawken affinity rate up. Or with any of the other, if I have an interesting dual blade, you get myself the critical rate up, or more max HP, right? Whatever you actually feel like. You don't have to necessarily go for the big bonuses. However, getting that 12% bonus damage from the Wail of the Willow, it's just so simple to pull off. Which set are you playing? Post that in the comments below, and if you have any questions left, ask them away. And now go and watch that video, because it will help you tremendously. Take care.